Last year, I spent all of Unixtober and a little bit of November playing around with this SPARCstation 5. Had a lot of fun with it, did a lot of interesting experiments, and it was great. But some folks may remember that from the same pickups video when I showed off this system, that I got this system, that I also picked up a SPARCstation 10. And it kind of magically never appeared in any videos last year. Well, it had some issues, and I started working on it, and actually the majority of this video was filmed last year, and I just never got around to finishing up the job. So this year, I'm going to have some fun, hopefully have some fun with the SPARCstation 10. But I'm not going to spend the whole month on Spark stuff. This is Unixtober. It's not Sparktober. Although, I mean, maybe that could be a thing too. Anyway, I'm going to start with a big chunk of the footage that I recorded last year where I'm digging into this machine. And then there's a bunch of stuff recorded this year where hopefully it'll get working. We'll see how it goes. This is the SPARCstation 10. It's a very similar form factor and case mechanism as the SPARCstation 5, which is over here just slightly out of frame. It came out, I want to say, 2 years before the 5. The 5 was a little bit of a cost-reduced model, whereas this was the higher-end workstation. It was eventually replaced with the SPARCstation 20. It has a very similar case opening mechanism with the captive screws back here, although one of the captive screws seems to have escaped because it's missing. Similar, very, very solid lid. But the internal design of it, I don't think is as clean as the 5, and it's definitely not as clean inside as the 5. Now, I've been in here once before. And you can see up in this area what the likely source of the problem is. Let me zoom in on this. Is that up in here, there have been some rodents living, and they have done the things that rodents do when they live in places, and so there's almost certainly some damage to this board. It's why I'm wearing the gloves also, because it's pretty icky. There's some corrosion on this metal piece here. Now this metal piece, there's a similar metal piece inside the lid that rests on that helps give it additional structure and makes it more solid. Ew. Okay, so that's enough of this shot. I'm going to zoom out. Then, before I proceed any farther, I'm going to take this outside and I'm going to get all of that out because I don't want any of that in my house. Ew. And I'll clean it up a little bit and then I will bring it back in, and I'm expecting I'm just going to disassemble all of everything before I even try to power it on again. Okay, I got it clean enough that I can at least stand having it inside the house. It's still pretty gross. Now, the reason this happened is missing back plates. So if you have retro computers, they're going to be stored in a garage or wherever. Make sure that all of the slot covers are closed, because a rodent, if it can fit its head through that slot, and a mouse absolutely can, then it can fit its whole body through, and it will live in the nice, cozy little hidey spot of your old computer, and will ruin it. Okay, but enough with the PSA. I'm going to go through and completely disassemble this thing so that I can get the board out, and I'm just gonna wash it. I think that is the only hope for getting this working. So I'm going to start with the RAM. So the memory in the SPARCstation10 is the same kind of, these locking here with some kind of a weird locking mechanism. The same kind of DRAM, what Sun called DSIMs, which I'm assuming means double SIM, which is, you know, the progenitor, I'm assuming, of the modern, well, the modern DIMM. And these are in here with some kind of a locking mechanism I haven't seen, so I don't really know how I'm going to get these out. So on the side here, there's these little, what look like latches. Should hold this in, and it seems like they ought to come out, but none of these want to come out. Okay, I might have to look up how to do this. I'll return to this because I really don't want to break these. One thing that's annoying about the RAM in this system compared to the SPARCstation 5 is the SPARCstation 5 can only take 8 and 32 megabyte memory modules, and this can only take 16 and 64 megabyte memory modules. That just seems rude. I'm sorry. That just seems rude. All right, so these are the S-Bus slots, the regular expansion slots for the Sun. I had in the previous video, I incorrectly, but I had pop-up text, I had incorrectly called those M-Bus slots. We'll get to the M-Bus slots here in a moment. And these, I believe, so this, oh, and they are screwed in. Okay, of course, because why would it be easy? And it is a teeny tiny little Phillips head. All right, so this is an Ethernet card, 100 base TX MII, which this is a different kind of network port, I believe. But this, the 100 base TX, we all know what that is. It's plain old fast Ethernet. And this card looks clean. It doesn't look like the mice got to it. This will be the video card. And based on the look of it, I am not sure which video card it was. Is it also, yeah, oh, it is. So the screw is just really hiding. Maybe once I get it out, it will say something on the other side, or I'll be able to presumably look it up online and figure out what it is. Okay, so this down here says GWV76CG3. So this is actually a fairly crummy video card for this CG3. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. So the video card in the Spark 5 is a Turbo GX / CG6. And this, I don't know, I think is also just 8-bit color, but maybe doesn't have acceleration, or I don't know. So I may end up swapping some parts around if I can get this working, because I would prefer that video card over this. Here is what should be the NVRAM chip, except I would have expected it to have the Ethernet MAC address on here, because there is still onboard Ethernet here, but U4TR is not those are not hex numbers. So I'm not sure what... I mean, that is the NVRAM chip. I just don't know. I guess I'll just make up a MAC address for this when the time comes. If the time comes. And then the CPU modules are on the M-bus slots, and there's two of them. There's one slot here and one slot here. So this is a dual SuperSPARC processor module of as yet unknown clock speed. And it was possible with these to populate two cards like this in here to have up to 4 CPUs, which was pretty freaking cool in 1992 to have, 4 processors on your desk. So let's go ahead and get... And this one definitely did get messy, especially back here on the connector. So it's going to need a good washing. But while I'm back here, I can take out the screws. Okay, let's see if I can get leverage on this somehow. Might have to turn it around. There we go. So let's see, does it say on here anywhere, give any indication what? Well, I think from these numbers I'll be able to look it up and figure out what it is. The crystal that's on here is 50 megahertz. And it doesn't say on the back. These chips and these chips will be the L2 cache. Difficult to say. I'll have to look it up to online to see what these are. I always kind of thought that these flying saucer looking heat sinks were kind of cool, but I know that they're not as effective. And then this would be, these two would probably be the basically the main system chipset. I don't particularly see anything else on here that's super exciting except some more rodent droppings. You can already tell that this is not going to be a quiet system. So when I do eventually get this powered up, it'll be interesting to see what's louder, the power supply fans or the SCSI hard drives. The service manual for the UltraSPARC one, which is a much later system than this, says it has the same kind of DSIM slots, and what it says is to push away, and then just magically the module comes out. But I'm not... Oh, I guess you just need to pull a little harder. Okay. So let's go ahead and remove all these. I'm going to show each of these to the camera so that I remember which ones were in which slots and what orientation they were in. Wow, there are so many memory chips. 3, 6, 9. So there's 18 on that side and 36 memory chips on this. So I'm assuming that these are most likely then, so this has got to be some kind of ECC memory, which makes sense for this kind of application. But man, and look at that, it's big. I mean, now you can have a Raspberry Pi where the whole computer is smaller than this, and it's going to have, 2 gigabytes of RAM. This. So interestingly, these don't use SCA connectors. They use regular 50-pin SCSI. So somewhere on here, probably these set of very annoying looking little jumpers are probably how the I keep forgetting that the camera's up there. These very irritating jumpers are probably how the SCSI ID is set. And so this may have similar kind of setup up here. Wow, and that is crazy looking cable configuration. So this, so this must be a proprietary cable that does all of everything. So I wonder if the floppy drive surely cannot be SCSI. That would be absolutely ridiculous. I'm going to leave that plugged in though, because what I want to get out is just the motherboard. Okay. So I see a little catch here. That screw doesn't look like, so maybe I can just, okay. There's a lot of little components on here that I'm trying not to push on. And break. Why? So it really, as soon as I let go of it, it really wants to pop back into place. There we go. So I think this screw back here is the last. Whoops. Hope I don't regret that later. Yes. Come on, let go. All right. And all that, and that's the motherboard. So the next step is I'm going to take out these chips. And I'm going to take very careful pictures of all these jumpers on here in case some of them come out. And then I am going to take it over to a sink and wash it out. Yeah. So there are some chips from this era. I just noticed this. There's these little gold bits on here, and a couple of them are missing. Some chips from this era, those gold things are actually some kind of configuration. There are some alphas like that, and actually years later some athlons were like that, and so people could pencil them in to change what their processor was. So I hope that these little gold bits, I mean, it doesn't look like there's any conductor underneath there. It looks like they were probably just decorative, but let's hope. Let's hope that it was just decorative. Okay. Well, that is going to be that for right now, because I'm going to, like I said, go wash this out with warm water and try to get all of the rodent ick out. And then I'm going to have to let this dry for some days, and hopefully after it's done drying, I'll be able to bring it back, reassemble it, and hopefully I'll be lucky for once and it'll just work. If it doesn't, looking at a bunch of these chips and whatnot, there's a bunch of grossness on here. A bunch of these pins are rusted. I'll have to try to very, very, very carefully clean those out so that there's no corrosion bridging those pins. But if it doesn't just work, then it will almost certainly be beyond my abilities to fix. In the previous segment, I said I wanted to wait some days for this to dry. Well, I waited about 350 days.
So it should be dry now. I've learned a lot about this system in that intervening time. So I'm going to cover some of that briefly first. There were a couple of pop-up texts alluding to some of this in the earlier segments, but I'm going to go into a little bit more detail. So first, I'd complained about memory. So the memory modules between the SPARCstation 10 and the SPARCstation 5 are physically different. Eagle-eyed observers will note that the SPARCstation 5 modules are just standard 5 volt based on this notch, fully buffered based on this notch, either FPM or EDO, DRAM, 168-pin DIMMs. Standard is maybe a weird word to use in this context because as far as I can tell, the SPARCstation 5s and the couple related systems that sort of cribbed from that design were the only systems to ever use these particular kind of modules. So I'll take back the "it's just mean" assessment. It is a little bit odd that the SPARCstation 5 can only use 8 and 32 megabyte modules. I think that is because there are some weird ways so the main memory and the ECC memory are different size chips, so they're addressed differently, and so there's weird stuff about how system chipsets have to talk to these kinds of memory modules to properly do ECC. And so maybe the motherboard chipset was just super limited, and there was 2 configurations that they physically made it capable of talking to. I don't know. These weird half slots are for video memory. Apparently there was a variation of the SPARCstation 10 called the SPARCstation10X that had integrated graphics. And this is where the memory for the integrated graphics go. And you can see on the back down here, there's a spot where a 13W3 connector could be soldered onto this board, but it's blank here. If there are other differences, I don't know what they are. I'm not super familiar with this, and I didn't explore this any further because it's not what I have. Finally, this CPU module is an SM51. It is a 50 megahertz, as I guessed based on the clock crystal previously, single Super SPARC 1 CPU. So I'm guessing that based on the heatsink saying microprocessor, that this is the CPU, and this other chip is actually the L2 cache controller. The dual processor modules are double this width. They obscure one of the S-bus slots. And they kind of look like someone just took 2 of these boards and kind of glued them together side by side. Now, I've cleaned this motherboard as well as I can. I washed it in the sink with a toothbrush, warm water, and a very little bit of baking soda. The baking soda has some mild physical abrasiveness, and because it's alkaline, it would help neutralize any residual acid from rodent urine. After that, I went after some of the remaining bits of cruft, and there were quite some bits of cruft, and you can still see some. I went after them with a dental pick to try to pick them off. Now, it's even with all that effort, there's still visible corrosion. I mean, you can see. I'm going to zoom in a bit closer here. You can see especially on these edges here, there's some stuff going on, and move this. You can see on these chips back here, there's some stuff going on. I've looked at it pretty closely with the magnifying headset, and I don't see any obviously bridged pins or other sorts of damage that can be seen even with the slightly aided eye. I don't know if this is going to work. My plan now is I'm going to put it back in the case and hook it up with a minimal set of cards. I'm going to use a single memory module. The memory modules have to be placed in a very specific order according to the Sun manuals. And this slot here has to be populated first. The single CPU card, I'm going to plug in a keyboard, and that's it. I'm going to connect a regular PC to the serial port and try to get serial console access, and hopefully that will emit out some sort of log messages that will tell me if anything interesting is going on. And I mean, we'll just hope for the best, because going beyond what I've done is probably beyond my skill set at this point in time. So if it doesn't just work, I don't know what I'm going to do. So let's go ahead and get this put back in the case and see what happens. All right, everything's all hooked up as it should be. I have a null modem cable connected to a serial to USB adapter that's connected to a modern PC that's off camera, because we don't need to look at that thing. And then so I have that displaying on the screen, which I'll try to get from the other angle. Hopefully that's visible and looks good and isn't terrible. All right, let's turn it on and see. Very nervously see what happens. So we should get blinking scroll lock light as it. All right, well, there's some output. That's a good sign. There should be. Okay, it's doing some tests. That seems good. Seems happy about some of the internal CPU tests. So the CPU module should be good. What I was starting to say before is as it's running tests, the scroll lock light is supposed to blink, I believe. Okay, that doesn't look good. So, So it crapped out in some kind of memory test very early on. So this must be the actual memory test. So I'm trying to infer from this that initially it was just testing the cache, and then this is testing RAM through the cache. Okay. Well then, I mean, maybe that memory module's bad? And it's in the correct. All right, let's try a couple other experiments. Let's see what it does. I mean, I've got other RAM modules. Let's try a different RAM module, and let's also see what it does without any RAM installed at all. That, I don't know, might inform something. Because I'm thinking that it's one of these big chips on the motherboard or some trace somewhere or something that I don't really have a way to monkey about with might be the issue. Because at this point it should just be running out of ROM. And okay, all right, let's turn this off and change the memory configuration around and just see what happens. See how easy that comes out? All right, so here's another one of, I think this is, yeah, that was the one that was the matched pair for that one. And looking at it from the angle I'm at, which is different from the angle you're at, it looks like it's in properly. All right, let's see what it does now. All right, power on reset. Seems the same as before so far. And again so far doing the same kind of tests and whatnot. Seems the same as before. We'll see what this does as it gets through. And that looks to be the exact same error message. So the things I don't, so adder, I'm assuming is the address 4. So address 0 was fine. Woo! And this is a 32-bit CPU, so it would access 4 bytes at a time. But I don't know what ASI, EXP, and OBS must be expected and observed. Oh, okay. So I was expecting to read back 0, and it got a stuck bit. Oh, that is actually... I mean, that's information, but in a complex system like this, I don't know what to do with that. In a Commodore 64, in an Amiga, in something comparatively simple, I'd know what to do with this. Like, find those something comparatively simple and something that I have the schematic for, or that I could, follow traces off of the CPU or whatever. But on this, I don't. And I'm pretty sure that was the exact same message. So it's probably not the memory module. I think that clinches it. It's something with the board or the chipset. It seems like, though, that it's probably something with the board. That there's some physical line that's damaged, or it could be in the connector. Unfortunately, you have to have a CPU in this CPU socket. You can't use the other one. So, and I'm also going to say we probably don't need to do the experiment of having... Well, all right, let's try that. Let's try having the experiment of see what happens with the RAM in the wrong module. So if I remember, the second slot where you're supposed to put RAM... I'll try not to stick my head in the camera here. Is this one. The advantage of having 2 cameras is even though I did stick my head in the camera, I can cut to the other camera. Haha. All right, so now let's see what happens. All right, so address 4. It's interesting that it didn't, maybe it doesn't test address 0. That seems odd. All right, we'll see what it does now. And then it takes a very long time to test the cache. Okay, so it complains that there's no memory where memory belongs. All right, so I don't know if this is telling anything because there's no memory in the slot that it wants, and then it's complaining that it's getting the wrong things read from the wrong places. All right. So, all right, let me try one final thing. The usual way. All right, so we'll put this back in the slot where it belongs. And then the usual way to get it to go into firmware diagnostic mode is stop D at power on. But I think that is a... Oh. All right, so it is going to do it. But I think that diagnostic stuff that happens is after it gets through this sort of baseline stuff. So the hope would be that this would let me dump out to some kind of command prompt and do something other than look at this and weep uncontrollably. No, it gets stuck here, and there's no... Let me make this window active. Yeah, and it does not want any interaction from me on that keyboard or this keyboard. Well, boo. All right, well, I think that this machine is stuck here. I know a couple other people in my area that I can ask, and certainly any of my viewers who have any brilliant ideas about what the heck to do with this, let me know. Otherwise, I guess I will go through it again with the magnifier and see if I see anything that looks like a bridge trace. I did go through with a multimeter and try to probe things, but it's hard to know what things perhaps should have continuity between them, because I tried a couple things and mostly got not continuity, but got a couple hits, and I kind of realized, well, I found something, but I don't know if what I found is what it's supposed to be or what it's not supposed to be. And since I don't have another one of these to do any sort of comparisons with, there was no way to make progress on that. So I'm gonna set this to the side, try to call in some extra help, see if I can figure anything else out for the remainder of my Unixtober videos. I'll probably play with some other toys, because this toy does not want to play. So if you enjoyed this, or want to support me in my time of woe, click the like button. If you would like to see if there are any follow-ups on this disaster, please click the subscribe button. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter. There are links in the description below. And until next time, try to remember the good stuff.